In this demo, we're going to show how to use some of the graphing and scaling options in the ECMLINK application. We'll start by opening a sample log file. I'm going to zoom into a section by selecting it and double-clicking. The first thing I'd like to show is the Graph Preferences dialog. This is where you set general preferences for the Dialog tabs. For example, if I want to change the number of columns in the legend from 3 to 4, I can do that using this field. You can use the Apply button to see the results of these changes without having to constantly open and close the Graph Preferences dialog. You can also change the legend font used from its default. I like to use Dialog 14. You can pick whatever you like. When you're done, you're going to hit OK, but before you do that, make sure you check the Save as Defaults checkbox if you want these settings to be the default settings for you. So now we're back to the graph display, and I want to show some of the individual item preferences. For example, I like to make Boost Est stand out a little more in the legend than the other items so I can find it more quickly. You can edit item preferences in the legend by either double-clicking the item or right-clicking and selecting Preferences. So here I'm going to change the label color from black to red and hit Apply. And now you can see that item change. It's going to stand out a little more than the others when I look down in the legend area. If you want to really make it stand out, you can change the font size of that one item to be different than the others. So now when I glance over at the laptop screen, for example, that's going to really stand out. But for now, I'm going to reset that back to defaults. You can do that by clicking the X button next to a field. That's going to reset it back to whatever the default was for that field. You can edit the preferences for anything in the legend. For example, I like to make the line color in the graph of the air-fuel ratio estimate to be gray. And then I like to make the line color of my wideband to be white, so that the two, appear related to each other on the graph, but yet I can still tell them apart. You can also change the display name for an item. If I don't like this AEM wideband gauge name, I can change it to be wideband 02 and hit Apply. You see it changed the name. Just like the Graph Preferences dialog, there's also a Save as Defaults checkbox here that you'll want to use if you want to make these defaults persistent for your next Dialog. Okay, now I'm going to add injector on time to my display. You do that using the displayed values or F9. And we can see injector on time is not really doing much here as far as we can tell. But we know it must be changing because the estimated air-fuel ratio item in the graph is cycling up and down to correspond with the front 02 input. So we know the ECU must be changing injector on time. We just can't quite see it in the graph because the scaling is too high. We can change the scaling. For example, I'm going to set it to 2 and 3 here. And now you can see injector on time was really changing quite a bit. We just couldn't see it at the time. That's useful for trying to get more detail out of a log item that looks like it's actually not changing much when you know it is. You can set those back to defaults just like we did before by checking the X box. Now it's back to defaults. The last thing I'd like to cover is the settings and direct access values that are saved in the log file. When you start a new log, the application records the ECU configuration and the direct access data that were present in your ECU when you started the log file. So if I want to see the direct access settings that this customer had in place when this log file was captured, I can click the direct access button here. And it's going to pull up a tab that shows me all the settings that were in place in his ECU when that log file was started. And I can look through here and see that these bold items indicate tables that he's changed from the stock values. So if I select his max octane table and then toggle between the stock view and his view, I can tell kind of the area where he was focusing his tuning efforts. I can tell he changed these values right in this area. Okay, I think that's about it for the graph preferences and options. I hope it was useful.